So one thing we have discussed that GP41 is also required for the cell fusion, right? Second thing is, so I need to move it. Second thing is this pathway. We have actually discussed this, but this diagram I got from the Panikkar book, in which a few important things are also mentioned, which we left in yesterday's class. तो एक्चुअली हम लोगों ने कल डिस्कस करा था कि किस तरीके से जो है प्रोटीएज एंजाइम जो वायरस के पास होता है वो उसको क्लीव करके अलग अलग प्रोटीन्स पॉलीपेप्टाइड प्रोटीन्स को स्मॉलर वर्जन्स में कन्वर्ट करता है जैसे P55 which is GAG polyprotein, so this will be converted into P17, 24, 7 and 6. We have discussed this. We have also discussed कि environment जो ये ENV gene से polypeptide या polyprotein synthesize hoga, then it will be P160, 164. It is a protein of 160 kilodalton. So it should be broken down into GP120 and GP41 with the help of protease. Similarly, this 160 kilodalton protein, which is a GAG polyprotein, which is a fusion product of both GAG and polymerase gene. You know, polymerase gene will encode 3 proteins. So all the 3 enzymes are present in the viral structure itself. As you can see here also, it is having these enzymes. These are reverse transcriptase, protease, and integrase. So these are also coming from this polyprotein. So when the protease will cleave these polyprotein into single proteins, then these structures will, or these proteins will emerge. Now, the thing which I want to focus are these numbers, as I have discussed yesterday, P17, P24. So what are these? P17 is actually the matrix protein. Okay, so look into this structure again. P17 is actually this matrix protein. Okay, so this matrix which is surrounding this capsid is having proteins, and these proteins are of 17 kilodalton, therefore they are called P17. So these are matrix proteins. Similarly, the capsid is having capsomere proteins which are 24 kilodalton in size, therefore it is represented with protein 24 kilodalton. So these are capsid proteins. Now, a few more things you need to know about the virus. Okay, so sorry. So one is the protease itself, which is necessary for all the protein synthesis, right? So this protease is actually called P10 because this is having a molecular mass of 10 kilodalton. Second thing is this reverse transcriptase. Sometime in examination, the reverse transcriptase has been asked in the terms of how much weight it is having. So it is also represented by P66 or P51, okay, when it is having 66 kilodalton or 51 kilodalton molecular weight. So this reverse transcriptase can be written like P66 or P51. Similarly, the integrase enzyme, which is required for the integration of double-stranded DNA into the host genome or the chromosome, is called integrase enzyme. Integrase is having 3 functionalities, as we have discussed yesterday. Similarly, the reverse transcriptase is also having 3 functionalities. So what kind of functionalities this integrase have? So this is an exonuclease. We actually have discussed this, but if you were not present in the last class, so I'm showing you what we have discussed actually. So wait a minute. Okay. So look here, it is given somewhere. So we have discussed this, that splicing is required to make these gene products, and these are REV independent and rest are REV dependent. So they should be transported out of nucleus. This is the nucleus of host cell, and this is cytoplasm, right? So these gene products or mRNA should be exported out of the nucleus with the help of this protein REV. if they are not spliced. If there is no splicing or there is partial splicing, so the size of the mRNA will be large, and therefore they require some kind of export mechanism to come out of the nucleus. Second thing is, we have discussed all these things that GAG polyprotein will make protein 24, 17, 6, and 9, and then this reverse transcriptase, protease, and integrase enzyme. So now you need to note this here, that this can be written, this reverse transcriptase is actually P66 or 51, right? Protease is actually 32, P32, and integrase is actually P10, right? So these you can write in this way. Integrase P10, and rest of the things are given here. Okay, so integrase is 32. So what I want to show you actually the functionalities of reverse transcriptase and integrase. So they are also given in the text only when you see that. So it is written here, this process is mediated by three distinctive functions of integrase. One is exonuclease activity, which trim the two nucleotides from the 3' end of the linear viral DNA duplex, and then the double-stranded DNA endonuclease activity. This is the second one. So it is having exonuclease, this is endonuclease, as well as it is having the ligase activity, right? So this integrase is actually having three functionalities. One is exonuclease, second is endonuclease, and third is the integrase function, right? Similarly, the reverse transcriptase is also having three functionalities. It is an RNA-dependent DNA polymerase, it is DNA-dependent DNA polymerase, as well as it is an RNase H, which will cleave or degrade the RNA out of the hybrid. So once the RNA is used as a template to synthesize the DNA out of it. Right, so this we have discussed. Now we should move to the next topic, hepatitis virus. So hepatitis virus are called hepatitis because hepatitis is used for hepatic is the liver, right? And itis, if the term itis is coined somewhere, it means swelling or inflammation. So if there is a problem in the liver cells, then it is the liver inflammation condition is derived due to some viruses, and those viruses are called hepatitis virus. Hepatitis is a liver inflammation commonly caused by an infectious agent or virus. Hepatitis sometimes result in the destruction of functional liver anatomy and cells. So actually होता क्या है जब ये virus का infection होता है, there are 5 different kinds of hepatitis virus identified. So they were named like hepatitis A, B, C, D, E, right? So why they are different? Because they are having some different features. For example, this is single-stranded, and their incubation periods are also different. So because they are having different characteristics, they're the different phenotype, they were named in different types. So A, B, C, D, E, there are 5 types. So whenever there is an infection of such virus, so it will infect our liver cells, and then there is an inflammation in the liver, or in severe cases, even the liver cells will undergo destruction, and ultimately this condition is known as cirrhosis, so the liver damage at all. So all the viruses are characterized by having this kind of symptoms in the individual, therefore they're called hepatitis virus. Some forms of hepatitis may lead to the liver cancer. अच्छा, कल हम लोग एक चीज और डिस्कस कर रहे थे कि कुछ केसेस में क्या होता है कि वायरस सेल्स को ट्रांसफॉर्म कर देते हैं, और उन केसेस में when the cells are transformed, the expression or their growth pattern also change. They will divide or proliferate in an uncontrolled way or fashion. So this condition is actually called transformation. So there is a normal cell, but if there is some viral infection, this is a virus particle, it is infecting an animal cell, it is going inside in the cytoplasm of animal cell, and then it will show some kind of effect so that this normal cell will be transformed. So you can see this shape of this cell is changed. And also, this is a result of activation of host proto-oncogenes. What are proto-oncogenes? So the genes which are responsible for the control or regulation of normal cell divisions, right? But if there is no normal control over cell growth and proliferation, it will grow and divide in an uncontrolled fashion, and ultimately it will make a group of cells which is known as tumor. Okay, so this transformation into a malignant cell or the tumor cell, this is also possible in case of hepatitis virus. Sorry, so we were here. Now, as I told you, they can have different features. Only you need to remember that all the hepatitis virus are having single-stranded RNA except hepatitis B, which is actually having double-stranded DNA. So their genome is different. In this case, you are having double-stranded DNA. In all the other cases, you can see there is single-stranded RNA, right? So this is the main difference, and you need to remember only hepatitis B is having double-stranded DNA. Second difference is only A and last one E are non-enveloped, whereas all the three viruses are enveloped, right? So the second thing you will remember that all three viruses, that is B, C, D, which are lying in between, are enveloped viruses, whereas the A and E, that is last one, are non-enveloped viruses. The third thing, this incubation period is also asked sometimes. So the first and last, which are non-enveloped viruses, they are having no envelope, so they are also having low incubation time, 2 to 6 weeks. Okay, they are having a very less incubation time in comparison to others. Then you will remember for C, it is actually having 2 to 22 weeks, right? So this is quite variable. This is, and then there is hepatitis B virus and D virus, which are having 4 to 26 weeks and 6 to 26 weeks. So simply you can remember this also. Okay. The genome of hepatitis B virus, that is coming under hepadna viruses, is among the smallest known of any virus. It is having very small size of genome, which is only 3 to 4 kb. Remember, we also have discussed polio virus. So जब हमने पोलियो वायरस डिस्कस करा था तब मैंने बताया था कि पोलियो वायरस is having the smallest size, but it is the overall size of the virus. It is only 28 to 30 nanometer in size. But here we are discussing about the genomic size, the size of genome of a virus. So generally, this hepatitis B virus, which is double-stranded DNA, it is coming under hepadina virus family. It is having the smallest known genome of any virus. It is only 3 to 4 kb in size. Kb, you know, kilo base pairs. It is having only means it is having only 3,000 to 4,000 base pairs of nucleotide base pairs of DNA. Like retroviruses, because it is having double-stranded DNA, hepatitis B virus uses reverse transcriptase enzyme. So you will also remember this. We have discussed reverse transcriptase in our previous class. So only two classes are having reverse transcriptase, either class 6 or class 7. If it is already having a DNA, then it will replicate via an RNA intermediate. If it should have an RNA, then it will replicate via double-stranded DNA intermediate. So actually, because it is having double-stranded DNA already, therefore it will come under class 7 of Baltimore system of classification, right? However, unlike retroviruses, DNA of genome of the hepatitis B virus is replicated through an RNA intermediate. So this we have discussed, the opposite of what is actually happening in the retroviruses or in HIV, for example. Hepatitis D virus is called satellite virus, or this is called hepatitis delta virus, is actually considered as a subviral satellite because, what do we mean by satellite? Satellite viruses are those viruses which Okay, so please let me answer one query. What is the difference between envelope and non-envelope viruses related to pathogen? Which is more dangerous? Okay, Anchal, actually, I have uh, told you several times this that enveloped viruses are those viruses which are actually having an envelope, and this envelope is actually coming from the plasma membrane of an host. So suppose there is a virus, एक वायरस ने जब एक एनिमल सेल को इन्फेक्ट करा, तो जब वो रिलीज के टाइम पे उसकी प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन को ही अपना एनवलप बना लेते हैं. कुछ वायरसेस में प्रॉपर्टी होती है, ठीक है. फॉर एग्जांपल HIV वायरस इज एन एनवलप्ड वायरस. तो wait a minute, let me tell you more about this. So see here. So we have discussed two type of viruses, enveloped and non-enveloped viruses. Or non-enveloped viruses are also known as naked viruses because they do not have any envelope or some covering. So this is called envelope, which is the outermost covering of any virus. We know viruses are having very simple structure. They are having a capsid and they are having genome, which is either DNA or RNA or single stranded, double stranded. It can be anything, but they are having this thing. So this is the normal virus, which is this black colored line here. So this is a virus. This is a viral particle, but this should be called a naked virus or non-enveloped virus if it is not having these two coverings or this outer covering at least. Okay. But in few cases, in enveloped viruses, what is the probability that when it will infect an host cell, it will take the plasma membrane of the host during budding, okay, and then it will make an envelope out of this plasma membrane. And then these are called as enveloped viruses. So now your second question is which one is more dangerous, whether enveloped virus or an naked virus? So actually both can be dangerous. Actually this envelope will help the virus to bind specifically to the host. Okay. Suppose if a virus is not having this envelope, it can also bind and infect the animal cell. Okay. For example, here it is a non-enveloped virus, which is actually having a capsid or this protein coat, and it is having the genome inside, right? So this is non-enveloped virus because it is not having any coat outside. So it will also infect the animal cell in the same way. Okay, but if it is having an envelope, so this is enveloped virus, for example, it should fuse with the plasma membrane because it is already having plasma membrane as envelope. When it will come into the contact of animal cell, it will fuse with this plasma membrane, and therefore this capsid or this nucleocapsid structure will come inside the cytoplasm where it will replicate, right? So both type of viruses can infect the animal cell, and they can be dangerous. But the difference between an enveloped and non-enveloped virus is only it is having an envelope outside, but the naked virus or non-enveloped virus are not having this envelope-like structure outside their nucleocapsid. All right. उसके बाद हमने डिस्कस करा हेपेटाइटिस वायरस के बारे में. ओके, so hepatitis B virus is actually related to the class 7 of Baltimore system of classification because it is having reverse transcriptase enzyme which will convert the double-stranded DNA into an RNA intermediate, right? Now the hepatitis D virus is also important because this is called satellite virus. What do you mean by satellite virus? Satellite virus is some virus which is actually uh, only replicate in presence of some other virus. It cannot infect any cell or any host in the absence of this supporting virus or helping virus. So in this case, in case of hepatitis D virus, the supporting or helping virus is hepatitis B, right? So whenever the hepatitis D virus will infect an host cell, it will also require hepatitis B virus for the infection. So read here, it is written already. So the hepatitis D virus is actually called hepatitis delta virus, D for delta, right? So it is considered as subviral satellite because it can propagate only in the presence of hepatitis B virus. देखो एक चीज होती है, viruses are those organisms, these are the connecting links between the living and non-living, okay, and these are obligate intercellular parasites. तो ये हमेशा एक लिविंग सेल के अंदर ही रेप्लिकेट कर सकते हैं क्योंकि वायरस का अपना कोई मेटाबॉलिज्म नहीं होता है, ओके, और कोई एनर्जी प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम भी नहीं होता है, तो वो हमेशा जब भी उन्हें रेप्लिकेशन करना होता है या अपनी नई कॉपीज बनानी होती है तो वो हमेशा एक होस्ट सेल को इन्फेक्ट करते हैं। अच्छा, इनके केस में क्या होता है, जो सैटेलाइट वायरसेस होते हैं ये एक सेल को भी इन्फेक्ट नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि these are not complete viruses, they therefore they always require an helping virus, a friend. For example, hepatitis D virus will require hepatitis B virus. So whenever this hepatitis B virus will infecting a cell, hepatitis D virus ultimately will infect that particular cell in the presence of hepatitis B virus. So therefore, the infection will be severe if both will infect, but hepatitis D virus cannot perform infection process independent out of some other virus, for example, hepatitis B virus. So this transmission of hepatitis D virus can occur either via simultaneous infection with hepatitis B virus. This is called co-infection. Now I'm introducing you with the two terms. One is called co-infection. Co means साथ. So whenever there are two friends, for example, hepatitis D virus and hepatitis B virus, both are infecting a single host cell, then this kind of infection is called as co-infection, simultaneous infection. And the second term is called superinfection. What is superinfection? Means one virus has already infected a cell, but some other virus will come and infect the same cell. This is called superinfection. If they are infecting simultaneously, यानी कि अगर एक साथ infection कर रहे हैं, then it is known as co-infection. अगर एक infection already हो चुका है जिसकी वजह से cell already weak है और तब दूसरा virus आता है और वो भी उसको infect करता है, then such type of infection is known as superinfection. So previously infected with hepatitis B virus, then hepatitis D virus will do the infection, and this infection is known as superinfection. This hepatitis D virus genome consists of single-stranded negative sense circular RNA. As I told you, this is single-stranded RNA enveloped virus, right? So there is one more query. Let me. Non-enveloped viruses incubation period is less than enveloped virus. Why? When both are weak. Actually not necessary in all the cases, but yes, here in case of hepatitis D virus, you can say this is having the non-enveloped viruses are having low incubation period, means they will do infection in less time in comparison to the enveloped viruses, because they will directly inject their genome inside the cell. Okay, so let me explain this. If you are not able to understand, then we should focus on this diagram. Wait a minute. So guys, we have discussed that there are two types of viruses. One is called as enveloped virus, one is called as non-enveloped virus, right? So see here, you will understand this. Suppose there is a non-enveloped virus which is not having this envelope, right? So what will happen? It will bind to the animal cell with the help of its capsid structure or some proteins which are present over this capsid. They will bind to the receptors present over the animal cell. Some receptors we have discussed already: CD4, CD21, CD155, and so on. Heparan sulfate, sialic acid. In yesterday's class we had discussed. So it will bind to this animal cell somehow, and then it will inject the genome into the animal cell, right? So what will happen once this genome, this whether it is DNA or RNA, it will come inside the cytoplasm, it will start replicating itself simultaneously. So what is the probability in case of enveloped viruses? अच्छा, enveloped viruses में क्या होता है? Enveloped viruses will fuse with the plasma membrane, so the complete nucleocapsid will come inside the cytoplasm. Now one more process will take place, that is called uncoating. In the uncoating, what will happen, this capsid will be disintegrated so that this genome can be released inside the cytoplasm. तो एक्चुअली ऐसे बोल सकते हैं कि जब ये न्यूक्लियोकैप्सिड होगा साइटोप्लाज्म में, तो इट इज एन टाइम टेकन प्रोसेस बिकॉज uncoating will take time to release this genome inside the cytoplasm. Okay, whereas in this case, in case of non-enveloped viruses, there is no capsid inside the cytoplasm. It will release its genome directly into the cytoplasm of animal cell, and then it will start replicating simultaneously, right? Therefore, it is obvious that the non-enveloped viruses are having less incubation time in comparison to the non-enveloped viruses are having less incubation time in comparison to the enveloped viruses, right? So I hope this is clear. If not, please let me know so that I can explain it again to you. All okay? Fine. तो बेटा क्या हो रहा है कि अगर एनवलप्ड वायरस होगा तो उसको अनकोटिंग करने में ज्यादा टाइम लग जाएगा, अपना जीनोम को रिलीज करने में साइटोप्लाज्म में, एंड देन उसके बाद ही वो रेप्लिकेट कर सकता है। लेकिन अगर नॉन एनवलप्ड वायरस है, उसके पास कोई एनवलप नहीं है, तो वो डायरेक्टली अपने जीनोम को ही सेल के अंदर इंजेक्ट कर देगा, जिसके बाद सीधे सीधे रेप्लिकेशन स्टार्ट हो जाएगा और उसका इंक्यूबेशन टाइम पीरियड हो जाएगा कम। बहुत बढ़िया। उसके बाद एक्चुअली हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं, ओके, ये भी समझ में आ गया। उसके बाद हमने हेपेटाइटिस डी वायरस के बारे में पढ़ा कि दो टाइप से इन्फेक्शन हो सकता है, वन इज कॉल्ड को इन्फेक्शन, वन इज कॉल्ड सुपर इन्फेक्शन। तो अगर दोनों के दोनों वायरस, क्योंकि हेपेटाइटिस डी को चाहिए हेपेटाइटिस बी वायरस, वो उसका फ्रेंड है, उसके बिना वो इन्फेक्शन नहीं कर सकता, ठीक है? तो अगर हेपेटाइटिस बी वायरस प्रेजेंट होगा तभी हेपेटाइटिस डी भी इन्फेक्शन करेगा। तो दो तरीके से कर सकता है। मान लो डी और डी दोनों साथ साथ हैं और दोनों एक साथ एक किसी सेल को इन्फेक्ट करें, देन दिस इज कॉल्ड को-इन्फेक्शन। एंड द सेकंड वन इज सुपर इन्फेक्शन। सपोज हेपेटाइटिस बी ने पहले इन्फेक्शन कर रखा है, तो क्या होगा, इन्फेक्शन के बाद जो सेल होती हैं, होस्ट सेल होती हैं, एनिमल सेल या व्हाटएवर द सेल इज, बैक्टीरियल सेल, तो होस्ट सेल विल बिकम वीक, okay, because the host machinery will be uptaken by the virus will use the host machinery to replicate, to make its own copies. Therefore the host machinery will be used by the virus itself, right? जिसकी वजह से होस्ट सेल्स वीक हो जाती हैं, और अगर कोई इन्फेक्शन हो गया है, then hepatitis D virus can easily infect that weak cell. So this is called super infection. Okay, so now there are plant viruses. We already have discussed these viruses. For example, we have discussed viroids and virusoids, but because it is given here in this text, so we will read it out and we will quickly finish this one also. So देखिए, plant viruses exist in two forms, polyhedral or rod shape. Most plant viruses have genome consisting of single RNA strand or plus sense type. और कुछ प्लांट वायरसेस तो केवल इसी के बने होते हैं, ठीक है? तो ज्यादातर जो प्लांट वायरसेस होते हैं उनमें आरएनए सिंगल स्ट्रैंडेड प्लस सेंस ही होता है, जीनोम। और अगर उनमें प्रोटीन कोट नहीं होगा, कैप्सिड नहीं होगा, देन दे कैन बी कॉल्ड एज वायरॉइड्स एंड वायरोसॉइड्स। वी विल डिस्कस देम आल्सो। So there are only two classes of DNA containing plant viruses. One is cauliflower mosaic virus, CMV, belong to the first class, that is the DNA virus. And the second one is, okay, it will have double stranded DNA. So now you will remember this कि ज्यादातर जो plant viruses होते हैं वैसे तो वो single stranded RNA होते हैं plus sense, but कुछ exceptions भी हैं, जैसे CMV, cauliflower mosaic virus. So this is actually having DNA double stranded genome, right? Second is तो एक तो हमने डिस्कस कर लिया है ऑलरेडी. Cauliflower mosaic virus is having double-stranded DNA genome. The second class is Gemini virus. Gemini means the twin viruses. Okay, so the Gemini viruses are also having DNA as their genome. So these are DNA-containing plant viruses that are Gemini viruses, right? Now you will remember both exceptions. One is cauliflower mosaic virus, and the second one is actually Gemini viruses, right? Which are having single-stranded DNA molecule. Now, the first virus, plant virus in fact, was the tobacco mosaic virus (TMV), जिसको पहली बार recognize करा, discovered by Dmitry Ivanovsky, and later it was crystallized by W. Stanley. So the first plant virus discovered by Dmitry Ivanovsky, and it was crystallized by W. Stanley. Okay, so this is the first plant virus ever which was discovered and then crystallized, means the structure was confirmed. So this tobacco mosaic virus (TMV) is a rod-shaped virus. The structure is given here, which is exactly having 2130 capsomeres. So if you count these proteins, these subunits, these are 2130 capsomeres, which are arranged in a helical fashion, and this is a right-handed helix. So if you look into the helix, it is moving in this direction. Okay, so this is a right-handed helix. If it should move like this in this way, then it should be a left-handed helix, but it is moving in this fashion, so this is a right-handed helix which is having RNA genome. So one more thing you should know about this virus is actually it is having 2130 capsomeres, and if you count number of capsomere in each turn, each helical turn is actually having 16.3 capsomeres, right, around the DNA. Please underline this. 16.3 capsomeres per helical turn around the RNA. It is having single-stranded RNA plus sense 64 kb. Okay, so 6.4 kb you can say nucleotides. All right. Now there are some other beyond viruses. We are having some other infectious agents. These are called viroids and virusoids, also prions. So अब तक जो हमने पढ़ा viruses के बारे में, viruses are called nucleoproteins, nucleocapsid, right? So this capsid is generally protein, and this is having nucleic or genome, which is either DNA or RNA. But now we will discuss some forms of infectious agents which are either proteins, then these are called as prions. These are not having genome, right? Or if it is having genome, it is either DNA or RNA, but it is not having protein coat, then they are called viroids and virusoids. I will tell you the difference between the viroids and virusoids, so we will discuss in this class. So first protein infectious particle is called prion, and the name is designated as PRP. PR for prion, P for protein. Prion protein, right? So the word prion is actually coined in 1982 by a scientist called Stanley B. Prishner, who derived the word from protein and infection, because this protein particle itself is infectious. It is not having genome. It is not having DNA and RNA. So actually at that time, it was a challenge to propose this kind of idea that protein alone can infect some of the organisms. But today we know about many such proteins which can cause infection in several organisms. So एक टेबल दी हुई है यहाँ पे, उसमें अलग अलग organisms में उस diseases को यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है. So prion diseases in humans and animals. In humans it is called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD in short. C for Creutzfeldt, J for Jacob, D for disease, CJD. Or it is called Kuru Okay, so I will tell you what is the difference between this Creutzfeldt Jakob and Kuru. Okay, then in cow, if this disease, this prion disease is found in cow, then this is called as mad cow disease or BSE, bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Why it is called so? Because in bovine or in cow, it will create spongy brain. Spongy brain means the sponge like structure will be formed, the pores will be created inside the central nervous system, जिसकी वजह से क्या होगा, organisms के coordinations में problem आने लगेगी, यानी कि it will not able to coordinate the movements. So कुछ इंसानों को जिनको ये disease होती है, they show the trembling, means they shake their hands and other body. Okay, because there is no coordination in the complete body because of loss of neurons in the CNS. Scrappy in the sheep, if it is found, it is known as scrappy disease. तो सबसे पहले sheep में से identify करा गया था, sheep में से scrappy बोलते हैं because scrappy means the sheep which is having this particular disease is having tremors, and it will rub its body against a wall or fence, due to which it was reported that there is wool loss in case of sheep, and therefore because it is scrapping, it is rubbing its body against some wall or some fence, then this disease is known as scrappy. Okay, then there is chronic wasting disease in some wild animals, for example in mule, in deer, in some other animals, for example in horse, it is known as chronic wasting disease, CWD. Okay, so the disease is same. Disease is same because the infectious particle is protein only, but in different organisms, the name can be different. The name given is different. Now, I will tell you what is the difference between these two diseases in humans, Kuru and Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, for example. In both the cases, the symptoms are same. The infectious particle is also same, but the derivation is different. Okay, so Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is actually caused due to when some humans eat some animal. For example, the cow which is having bovine spongiform encephalopathy is having this mad cow disease. So this will lead to the disease in human called as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or a variant of this Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. And the Kuru is different because the Kuru disease was identified in humans. We also having one lecture about this disease Kuru. So there was a community of people which were actually eating their dead persons. So actually when humans start eating humans, this is called cannibalism, because the same species will eat the humans will eat the humans, for example. So human which is having this disease will be transmitted to other humans. So this is then known as Kuru. Fine. So let's discuss about the infectious particle. So this is called prion disease or prion proteins. The endogenous normal cellular form is denoted as PRPC, C4 cellular. So if it is written like PRPC, so it is the normal form. It is not diseased version. But if it is disease causing infectious and misfolded form, is actually written like PRPSC, SC4 scrappy. So if you write C here, this is normal. If you write SC here, this is diseased. Or you can say this is disease causing protein. SC4 scrappy, scrappy because this is known as scrappy disease in goat and the sheep and goat. Okay, so in sheep it was recognized first, so the name is also given like PRPSC. After one of the disease first linked to the prions. Prions are glycosylated proteins. Okay, now someone can ask you what are prions. So these are glycosylated proteins. Glycosylated proteins are those proteins to which some carbohydrate moieties are attached. and linked to the membrane, and these are linked to the cell membrane by an GPI anchor or some linkage. So what is GPI? GPI is okay, so this is having, so let me tell you, if it is having inositol, so GPI anchor is a phospholipid which is present in the plasma membrane. So it is known as glycosyl phosphatidyl inositol, right? Which is a phosphoglyceride. So the glycerol moiety is attached to an carbohydrate or sugar, which is known as inositol. Now this GPI linked proteins are misfolded. Then this misfolded version is actually denoted by PRPSC, scrappy. So the infectious form, that is PRPSC, is responsible for neurodegenerative disease. इसकी वजह से क्या होगा? Nerves का degeneration हो जाएगा, sponge-like structures form हो जाएंगे brain में. In animals, including the humans, and humans it is also known as Kuru or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Normal cellular PRPC, this is cellular form, is converted into the diseased version through a process whereby the portion of its alpha helical structure is converted into the beta sheet. Question. So question can be direct or indirect. So how this normal cellular form, that is PRPC, is converted into PRPSC. So this PRPC is actually alpha helical coiled structure, right? But when it will become the diseased form, it should be converted into beta sheet. So normally what is happening, this alpha form is getting converted into the beta. As you can also see into the structure, this is alpha helical coiled structure, but it is getting converted into this beta form. So this beta form is actually the disease causing. तो जिसकी वजह से disease हो रही है. तो हम इसको कैसे लिख सकते हैं? This beta form is can be also written as prion protein, PRPSC, and this is the normal cellular form. So this is PRPC. C4 cellular normal form, PRPSC4 disease, or this beta form, which is converted from a version of this alpha helix. So actually, if this alpha helix is converted into the beta plated sheet, this will be misfolded, and this misfolded protein can be infectious, can have infectious properties. This is called as infectious particle or the prion protein, right? This structural transition from alpha to beta is accompanied by the profound changes in the physiochemical properties of this protein. So the protein which is GPI linked to the plasma membrane, the physiochemical properties are modified. Therefore, it will behave abnormally. As you know, the GPI linkage proteins over membrane are having some role in cell signaling. If they are misfolded, they can be hazardous. They can lead to severe consequences inside the animal cell, right? PRPC, this is the normal cellular form, is sensitive to proteases. One more thing you should need to remember is actually the PRPC, the normal form, is sensitive to protease. The protease enzyme or the protein degrading enzyme can cleave this alpha helical form, but if it is converted into beta form, this will not cleaved by the proteases, and therefore they will start accumulating inside the cell, and they will make some insoluble bodies or mass of protein inside the cell if they are not degraded by proteases, right? So these PRPSC is protease resistant actually. So you need to underline this also. High content of beta sheet, if they are present in high content, result in the formation of some structure, insoluble mass, that is called amyloid fibrillous structures. This amyloid fibrils are insoluble and they will be aggregated into the cell. They will make some kind of insoluble mass inside the cell, which is not useful. Absent from PRPC form. PRPSC form can perpetuate itself by causing a newly synthesized PRP protein to take PRPSC form instead of PRPC form. So actually, because this is an infectious particle now, this beta form, it can perpetuate itself. It can make several copies of this, because this will catalyze the formation of more beta sheets from the alpha helical proteins. Therefore, these prions are novel transmissible agents causing the group of neurodegenerative diseases. So, कुछ जो diseases हैं neurodegenerative diseases, उनमें ये infectious particles major role play करते हैं. Can be perpetuated by inoculating the animal with the tissue extracted from the infected one. So, if you remove a tissue from an infected animal and you will put this tissue to some normal animal, so then that particular normal animal will also develop this disease, neurodegenerative disease. Collectively, prion diseases described as spongiform encephalopathies. Spongiform encephalopathy बोलते हैं क्योंकि spongiform. Spongy means the sponge-like structure are formed inside your CNS or in the brain. That will affect the neuronal activity and therefore it will lead into the neurodegenerative diseases. लेकिन प्लांट में ऐसी कोई भी डिजीज नोन नहीं है क्योंकि प्लांट में सीएनएस नहीं होता है. ओके, दिस इज क्वाइट सिंपल. यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड. इफ यू आर हैविंग अ क्वेरी, प्लीज आस्क. In 1997, American scientist Stanley B. Prishner won the Nobel Prize because he discovered this agent first. So he got the Nobel Prize in 1997. Kuru was the first naturally occurring spongiform encephalopathy in humans shown to be caused by prions. In humans, it was known as Kuru. So the first described by the two scientists, Gazdusek and Gigas in 1957. Kuru is characterized by cerebellar ataxia and shivering like tremors. So if you find some person which is having this shivering like tremors, okay, and this ataxia, it will result from the complete motor incoordination. So the individual may have this disease. Next is viroids. So we are also having some other infectious particles. Yeah, she's having a query. Okay, so is this PRP cellular normally present in our body? Yes, it is present. So this PRPC is present in our normal cells, which is an alpha helical form. But suppose if you got from somewhere this infectious particle or the beta form, or somehow this is converted into beta form, then this beta form is an catalyzing agent which will convert more alpha helix into the beta pleated diseased version. So therefore, it will be able to perpetuate itself. It will be able to make more copies of itself, right? Normally it is present in this form, alpha form. But if you eat some animal which is infected with this PRPSC or prion particle, then that particular tissue will catalyze the formation of this beta pleated version from this alpha helix, and therefore you will get the disease. Okay, the next infectious particle is viroid. Viroid is discovered and named by Otto Diener. Smallest infectious agents in plant. So actually we are discussing about plants. So plant infectious agents are also called viroids. Viroids are small in structure because small in structure than viruses. तो देखो ऐसे होता है, जो eukaryotic cells होते हैं वो बड़े size के होते हैं. Generally they are having 5 to 10 micron size. Prokaryotic cells, for example, bacterial cells are small, generally 1 to 2 micrometer or less. Right? Micrometer is 10 to power minus 6 meter, right? But the viruses are even smaller than bacteria. They are having nano dimensions, nano size range. So the smallest virus is 28 to 30 nanometer. For example, HIV viruses around 100 nanometer. The large virus which can have 200 to 300 nanometer size, okay, diameter. But and nanometer is actually 10 to power minus 9 meters. So there is size difference. They can infect the bacteria or other cells, eukaryotic cells, right? Because they are smaller in size. Now there are even smaller infectious particles, which can be even single protein. For example, we have discussed prions. We have also going to discuss the viroids and virusoids, which are smaller than viruses because they do not have a coat-like structure. So they are smallest infectious agent in plants. They are single-stranded, covalently closed circular RNA molecules only. There is no protein coat, there is no capsid, and the number of nucleotides are also, see, this is very, very less number of nucleotides they're having. Generally 250 to 400 nucleotides long only. So they are very small in size, not associated with any of the proteins. Now these virion, oh sorry, this viroids, virion is virus itself, mature particle. The viroids, RNA does not code for any protein actually, because the RNA, which is single stranded, it will not encode for any proteins. Only the virus can infect some cells. They do not need a helper virus for replicating, even though they do not encode any protein. And the second important thing is this line. You need to understand this line. They do not require, देखो पहली बात तो उनके पास में कोई भी प्रोटीन को एनकोड करने वाला जीन नहीं है. इसके बावजूद भी वो किसी हेल्पर वायरस की उन्हें रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है. They are very independent, right? Though they do not need any helper virus like satellite viruses, as we have discussed in case of hepatitis D virus. They do not need a helper virus. Helper virus की जरूरत ही नहीं है, वो खुद से multiply कर सकते हैं. Okay, they can infect by themselves. They do not require this helper virus for replication, even though they do not encode for any proteins. Therefore, they are called viroids. Now, what is the difference in viroids and virusoids? Virusoids actually will require some helper virus, and they are different from satellite viruses because they are not viruses, because they are having only this genome. They do not have any capsid or protein, right? So this is the main difference. They do not need a helper virus, and they can infect even in the absence of any helper virus. So they can use the host machinery for replication, very similar to the mechanism of replication is very similar to viruses. So they will use the host machinery to replicate. Viroids have so far been shown to infect plants only. So actually ये केवल plants में infection करते हैं. No viroid diseases of animals are known, and the precise mechanism by which the viroids causes plant diseases is actually unclear. Actually, we do not know much about. So please do not ask me. I do not know much about this. This is unclear. Mechanism is unclear, right? So a few well-studied viroids include coconut cadang viroid and the potato spindle tuber viroid, that is called PSTV, potato spindle tuber viroid. So these are some of the examples which will infect only plants. For example, this potato, this will infect potato only. Although the viroid encodes no protein enzymes, because the viroid RNA will act as an ribozyme. We have discussed about ribozymes. So if RNA will act as an enzyme, so this is known as ribozyme. RNA enzyme. They do not require an enzyme or protein because they are having single-stranded RNA. Oh, sorry, ENZYME, enzyme. So they are having RNA, and these RNA can act like enzymes. Therefore, they're called ribozymes. Now, see this virus and viroids. So there are differences. The virus can have either DNA or RNA. It can be single-stranded or double-stranded or segmented, even in some cases. But in case of viroids, it is only RNA genome, which is single-stranded. Proteins are absent, capsid is absent, there is no coat, so they are having no coat. Okay, but viruses are having coat. Host, they are infecting plants, whereas the viruses can infect any one, bacteria, any plants. Okay, सेकेंड थिंग इज सैटेलाइट वायरसेस. सो सैटेलाइट वायरसेस में हम लोगों ने अभी पढ़ा कि एक तो subviral, that is known as hepatitis D virus. Satellites are subviral agents. Subviral means they are not complete viruses because they cannot infect independently. They always require a friend, a helping virus so that they can do infections, which comprise nucleic acid that depends for their replication on helper viruses. तो हमेशा इन्हें एक helper virus की requirement होती ही है. Satellite include both satellite viruses as well as satellite nucleic acids. तो एक तो सैटेलाइट वायरसेस में हमने पढ़ा हेपेटाइटिस डी वायरस, तो ये हम पढ़ चुके हैं. दूसरा सैटेलाइट न्यूक्लिक एसिड, तो अभी हम सैटेलाइट न्यूक्लिक एसिड पढ़ने वाले हैं. ओके, सो सैटेलाइट न्यूक्लिक एसिड मे बी सिंगल स्ट्रैंडेड सैटेलाइट दिस आरएनए, सिंगल स्ट्रैंडेड सैटेलाइट डीएनए और डबल स्ट्रैंडेड सैटेलाइट आरएनए. तो अब देखो बच्चों, यहाँ पे क्या है, सिंगल स्ट्रैंडेड सैटेलाइट आरएनए हो सकता है, सिंगल स्ट्रैंडेड डीएनए हो सकता है, डबल स्ट्रैंडेड आरएनए हो सकता है, लेकिन डबल स्ट्रैंडेड डीएनए नहीं हो सकता. तो सैटेलाइट न्यूक्लिक एसिड कभी भी डबल स्ट्रैंडेड डीएनए नहीं हो सकता. सो आई एम writing it here so that you can. It is never a double stranded DNA. कभी नहीं होगा, ठीक है. So this is never ever a satellite. Most of the characterized satellite nucleic acids are associated with plant viruses. So ज्यादातर उनमें से जो हैं plant viruses के साथ associated रहते हैं. Mostly are single stranded RNA. और जैसा कि हमने पहले भी डिस्कस करा है, ज्यादातर उनमें से single stranded RNA containing होते हैं जो भी infectious particles हैं. Satellite nucleic acid do not have capsid because they are do not having protein encoding genes. Okay, rely on helper viruses. Therefore, they will rely on helper viruses to enclose their genome. तो helper viruses यहाँ पे क्या करेंगे, तो satellite nucleic acids होंगे, उनको भी अपने अपने capsid के अंदर, कोट के अंदर enclose कर लेंगे. Now you will see this. Satellite nucleic acid are always functionally dependent on specific helper virus and are encapsulated by the protein coat of these helper viruses. तो भैया ये कोट भी किसका होता है इनके पास हमेशा ये हेल्पर वायरसेस का ही कोट होता है और उसी के अंदर ये एनक्लोज रहते हैं. तो देयरफॉर दे आर कॉल्ड सैटेलाइट न्यूक्लिक एसिड्स. Single stranded satellite RNA are short RNA molecules, usually less than 1500 nucleotides. अब इनको क्या करेंगे, हम तीन कैटेगरीज में डिवाइडेड कर देंगे, क्लास 1, क्लास 2, क्लास 3. अगर देखो इनके पास में नंबर ऑफ न्यूक्लियोटाइड ज्यादा हैं, यानी कि 800 से लेके 1500 तक, then they are called as linear single, sorry, large linear single stranded satellite RNA. अब इनके पास क्या होगा, ओपन रीडिंग फ्रेम भी होगा और कम से कम एक नॉन स्ट्रक्चरल प्रोटीन को एनकोड कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, कम से कम एक तो एनकोड करेंगे ही करेंगे. लेकिन मान लो अगर ये एक भी एनकोड नहीं कर पा रहे हैं विदाउट एनी ओपन रीडिंग फ्रेम और नंबर ऑफ न्यूक्लियोटाइड भी कम है, लेस देन 700 न्यूक्लियोटाइड, देन दीज आर कॉल्ड स्मॉल लीनियर सिंगल स्ट्रैंडेड सैटेलाइट आरएनएज. और अगर नंबर ऑफ न्यूक्लियोटाइड्स बहुत ही कम है और प्रोटीन को भी एनकोड नहीं कर रहे हैं, if it is having only 350 से 400 nucleotides long, then they are called as small circular single stranded satellites. So they will be circular in shape. So then they are called as virusoids. So जो last वाली class है इसको ही हम केवल बोलेंगे virusoids. So you will underline this, it is written here. Okay, virusoids are part of this class because they are having this single stranded circular genome. The size of genome is very, very small. That is only 350 to 400 nucleotides long. And actually they do not encode for any protein because they do not have an open reading frame, right? So now you are able to get the differences between viroids and virusoids. So viroids को helper virus की requirement नहीं होती है, लेकिन जो virusoids हैं, these are kind of satellite nucleic acids. They always require a helper virus inside their coat. They will and they will enclose their genome, and the genome is very, very small, single stranded circular RNA of 350 to 400 nucleotides, right? Otherwise both are similar, they do not encode for any proteins. Questions? Okay, so now there is difference is also given in virusoids and satellite viruses. So both are different terms. Single-stranded satellite RNA, they replicate via this rolling circle mechanism of replication. Most of the viruses are having this mechanism, rolling circle mechanism. So you need to remember this because this can be a direct question. Okay, they are having rolling circle mechanism. So remember this line. Then the strand of RNA that is packaged into the helper virus is called as plus strand. Okay, so always remember this. The plus sense strand is always enclosed or packaged inside the coat of or the capsid of helper virus. RNA replication of virusoid is similar to that of viroids, but unlike viroids, virusoid require the cell also be infected with a specific helper virus. तो बिना helper virus के virusoid infection नहीं कर सकते. This is the main difference between a viroid and virusoid. भैया किसको ये viroid और virusoid समझ में नहीं आए? Then there are satellite viruses. Are the satellites that which are chemically nucleoproteins and encode a structural protein. अगर वो कुछ structural proteins को encode करते हैं to encapsulate their genome, but rely on helper viruses also for their application, then they are called satellite viruses. The example is hepatitis D virus, for example. Satellite viruses are completely dependent on helper viruses for replication, while the replication of the helper virus does not depend on the satellite virus. देखो, satellite virus तो helper virus पे dependent हैं, but the helper virus are not dependent upon satellite virus. They can replicate independent of satellite viruses. Satellite viruses are classified into single-stranded RNA satellite viruses and double-stranded DNA satellite viruses. तो दो categories में इन्हें divide कर सकते हैं. Now you are able to understand the three terms: viroid, virusoid and satellite viruses. Satellite viruses में प्रोटीन तो एनकोड होती हैं, लेकिन हमेशा उनको इन्फेक्शन के लिए और रेप्लिकेशन के लिए कुछ हेल्पर और फ्रेंड वायरसेस की रिक्वायरमेंट होती है. जैसे हेपेटाइटिस डी वायरस को हेपेटाइटिस बी वायरस की रिक्वायरमेंट होती थी, अभी हमने पढ़ा. ठीक है. Now there are some bacterial and viral diseases. So these are called pathogens. Pathogens are those agents which will cause infection, right? उसकी वजह से disease होती है. Disease causing agents are called pathogens. Ability to cause a disease is called pathogenicity. बेटा एक्चुअली सम ऑर्गेनिज्म हैविंग दिस काइंड ऑफ रेप्लिकेशन मैकेनिज्म. देखो अलग अलग ऑर्गेनिजम्स में, जैसे बैक्टीरिया की बात करें तो इट इज हैविंग थीटा मोड ऑफ रेप्लिकेशन. रोलिंग सर्कल मैकेनिज्म इज अ काइंड ऑफ mechanism. It is a mechanism of replication by which viruses will replicate its genome. So you can understand from the term itself, rolling circle. So a circle will be rolled out when the replication or the synthesis of DNA is continuous. If you are not able to understand, then I will try to. Okay, so let me tell you this, what is rolling circle mechanism with the help of some diagram actually. So if you type this term over internet, you will directly get something you will easily understand. But if you are not able to understand, then I'm telling what it means. Okay, so let me show you. So see this particular diagram, this is actually depicting the rolling circle mechanism of replication. So these viruses are actually having this circular genome, as it is telling that they are having single stranded circular genomes. Okay, so what will happen, either it will have this double stranded genome or a single stranded genome, then there will be a site of origin of replication, okay, from where it will start, and it will continue to make copies of this circle, and it will make several copies Once the several copies are made, then only it will be cleaved from in between, तब वो separate होते हैं, ठीक है? I hope this will help you to understand this better. Okay, fine. So now बहुत सारे मैकेनिज्म होते हैं. अगर आप अभी गूगल पे टाइप करेंगे थीटा मोड ऑफ रेप्लिकेशन, so you will understand how this theta like structure is formed and then replication is taking place. So the different organisms are having different mechanism of replication. So in case of virusoids, because they are having circular single-stranded RNA, so you need to remember this, that they are having this rolling circle mechanism of replication because they are already circular genome. So it is easy to replicate the circular genome with this rolling circle mechanism. So each time a circle will roll around the genome so that a new copy of RNA will be formed. Now there are some bacterial and viral diseases. I'm interested in these diseases because sometimes directly has been asked that what pathogen is responsible for causing which kind of disease. Now the few terms, pathogen is a microorganism which will causative agent of any disease, and the ability of that organism or that microorganism to cause a disease is called pathogenicity. Okay, the term disease broadly refers to any condition that impairs the normal function of an organism. तो एक्चुअली होगा क्या, अगर किसी इंसान को डिजीज हो जाए तो नॉर्मल फंक्शन हैम्पर हो जाएगा. जैसे अगर किसी को फीवर हो जाए या किसी को इन्फेक्शन हो, इन्फ्लुएंजा हो जाए, जुकाम हो जाए, तो उसकी वजह से वो अपने नॉर्मल डेली एक्टिविटीज को नहीं कर पाएगा. ठीक है, तो इट विल impair the normal functioning of that particular organism, whether it is human or some other organism, right? Even in case of bacteria also, the normal cell will be not able to perform the normal functions. Okay, infectious diseases, also termed as transmissible diseases or communicable diseases, ये क्या होती हैं जो एक इंसान से या एक ऑर्गेनिज्म से दूसरे में फैल जाएं. Comprise illness resulting from an infection, presence and growth of a pathogen in the host organism. अब देखो ये जो diseases हैं, तो इसमें हम लोगों ने जब माइक्रो स्टार्ट करी थी तो हमने कुछ प्रिंसिपल्स को डिस्कस करा था. These principles are given by a scientist. So these are some postulates. These are known as Koch postulates. So let me write here. Koch's postulates. Right. So what are Koch's postulates? There are 4 postulates in 1876. 1876 में रॉबर्ट कोच ने कुछ स्टडीज करी. उन्होंने एक रिलेशनशिप एस्टेब्लिश करा बैसिलस एंथ्रेसिस में एंड एंथ्रेक्स डिजीज में. So if someone asks you, this can be asked as direct question. So the disease which was studied by the Koch, Robert Koch, was anthrax. ओके, और उन्होंने अपनी इन फाइंडिंग्स को एक पोस्टुलेट्स की फॉर्म में पब्लिश कर दिया. ठीक है, देयर वर 4 पोस्टुलेट्स ऑफ कोच. उसके अकॉर्डिंग उन्होंने फिर दूसरी डिजीजेस को भी स्टडी करा. उन्होंने देखा कि एंथ्रेक्स ही नहीं, दूसरी भी जो डिजीजेस हैं जैसे लेप्रोसी और फॉर एग्जांपल ट्यूबरक्लोसिस, दे आर आल्सो हैविंग सेम फीचर्स. सो द पोस्टुलेट्स वर फाउंड टू बी ट्रू इन केस ऑफ ऑल डिजीजेस. तो अब ये 4 पोस्टुलेट कौन कौन से हैं? पहला पोस्टुलेट है द माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म मस्ट बी प्रेजेंट इन एवरी केस ऑफ डिजीज बट एब्सेंट फ्रॉम एन हेल्दी ऑर्गेनिज्म. तो जो माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म है, अगर किसी इंसान में कोई बीमारी है, if some person is diseased, so he or she should have an microorganism. बिना माइक्रोऑर्गेनिजम्स के कोई डिजीजेस नहीं होती हैं. अभी माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म कुछ भी हो सकते हैं, ये कैन वायरसेस भी हो सकते हैं और बैक्टीरिया भी हो सकते हैं, और इन केस सम केसेस में ये फंगल पैथोजेंस भी हो सकते हैं. So these are called microorganisms. If microorganisms are present, means the diseased person, if it is having some disease, means there should be some microorganisms which are responsible for that particular disease. This is the first postulate. Second postulate is the suspected microorganism must be isolated and grown in a pure culture. अगर आप किसी डिजीज्ड इंसान से इस माइक्रोऑर्गेनिजम्स, इस डिजीज्ड पैथोजन को और माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म को आइसोलेट कर लेंगे, तो इसे एक प्योर कल्चर में, प्योर कल्चर क्या होते हैं, केवल उसी स्ट्रेन को ग्रो करना. प्योर कल्चर आर दोज व्हेन यू ग्रोइंग दिस पार्टिकुलर माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म by isolating it and growing in a pure culture, means in some media. Third postulate was the same disease must result when isolated microorganism is inoculated into an healthy host. अगर आप प्योर कल्चर से लेके इस माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म को किसी दूसरे हेल्दी होस्ट में या किसी हेल्दी इंसान में फॉर एग्जांपल ट्रांसफर कर देंगे, इंजेक्ट कर देंगे, तो उस इंसान को भी वही बीमारी हो जाएगी जो उस बीमार इंसान को है. ठीक है. So this was the third postulate. Same disease will result if you inject this microorganism from the pure culture to some healthy host, so it will also have the same disease. And the fourth postulate was actually the same microorganism must be isolated again from the disease host. अगर आप जो इंसान बीमार हो गया है, अभी जो पहले हेल्दी हुआ करता था, उससे उस माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म को सेपरेट कर लेंगे, तो ये वही माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म होगा. अगर इसे माइक्रोस्कोप में देखेंगे तो सेम माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म होगा. So same microorganism will be recovered from the diseased insan, okay, diseased person. So these four postulates were given by Koch. Okay, so this presence and growth of pathogen in the host organism, therefore, it is valid and true. Now there is a query. No query. Guys, please ask questions. Okay, now there is a table in the next page. So मैंने बताया कि उन्होंने एंथ्रेक्स डिजीज को स्टडी करा था. सो एंथ्रेक्स किसकी वजह से हो रही थी? बैसिलस एंथ्रेसिस की वजह से. उस इंसान ने देखा कि बैसिलस एंथ्रेसिस जो माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म है उसे प्योर कल्चर में ग्रो किया जा सकता है. जब बैसिलस एंथ्रेसिस को प्योर कल्चर से किसी हेल्दी इंडिविजुअल में ट्रांसफर करेंगे तो उसको भी वही डिजीज हो जाएगी, एंथ्रेक्स हो जाएगी. और जब एंथ्रेक्स वाले इंसान से जो बीमार हुआ है अभी फ्रेशली, उससे उसका ब्लड लेंगे या उसका टिश्यू लेंगे और उसको फिर माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म को आइसोलेट करने की कोशिश करेंगे, तो वो वही माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म होगा जो पहले था. So this microorganism and disease correlation is very linear. Okay, so whenever there is a microorganism, so it can cause a disease. Anthrax is due to Bacillus anthracis. Robert Koch ने इसको स्टडी करा था. Okay, botulinism, this is Clostridium botulinum. Cholera, Vibrio cholerae, कुछ लोग इसको वायरस मानते हैं. This is bacterium, right? So next is Leonid disease, this pneumophila, typhoid disease, Salmonella typhi, diphtheria, Corynebacterium diphtheriae, meningococcal. So you can read them out. Okay. So some are very important which can be asked. I will tell you. So for example, which are important. So one is cholera, Vibrio cholerae, for example. So this is a bacterium. वूपिंग कफ, बॉर्डिटेला परट्यूसिस, बहुत बार पूछा गया एग्जाम में क्योंकि कुछ बच्चे भूल जाते हैं. वूपिंग कफ इज, so this disease which is called whooping cough is due to a microorganism by Bordetella pertussis. This whooping cough is therefore is also known as pertussis. Okay. Next is tetanus, Clostridium tetani. Syphilis, I already told you this is due to Treponema pallidum. I have shared in the group also. Syphilis is due to Treponema pallidum. Okay, so these are few which you need to remember at least. Other you can get from the term itself. For example, typhoid, Salmonella typhi, diphtheria, diphtheriae, meaning titus due to this, right? So whooping cough, syphilis, and cholera, these are important ones. So you need to know the microorganism because sometimes microorganism can be asked as a direct question. Now there are some viral diseases. Hepatitis, it can be ABCDE. Influenza virus, there are several strains, H1N1, H2N2, यही हमने डिस्कस करी कल के लेक्चर में भी. तो आप में से कुछ लोग एब्सेंट थे, so let me tell you again, some are very important क्योंकि वो बार बार पूछे जाते हैं. Okay, so there are some influenza which are having specific names. Okay, so the influenza A virus जो होता है, it is having two type of antigen on its surface. One is called as hemagglutinin, second is called as neuraminidase. तो एक तो डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन पूछा जा सकता है यहाँ से, भैया जो इन्फ्लुएंजा होता है उसमें कौन कौन से एंटीजन होते हैं. तो एक होता है हीमैग्लूटिनिन, जिसको हम H बोल सकते हैं, ठीक है. हीमैग्लूटिनिन इज H एंटीजन. और एक दूसरा होता है न्यूरामिनिडेज, जिसको N बोल सकते हैं. ओके, न्यूरामिनिडेज, सॉरी दिस इज N, न्यूरामिनिडेज, जिसको हम N बोलने वाले हैं. और देखो समझने की बात क्या है इसमें, जो ये जो दोनों हैं एंजाइम, न्यूरामिनिडेज इज एन एंजाइम, हीमोग्लोबिन इज आल्सो एन प्रोटीन. तो ये दोनों एनकोड होते होंगे किसी जीन से, और वो जीन सेगमेंटेड जीनोम होता है इन्फ्लुएंजा के केस में. सो सेगमेंटेड जीनोम होने के कारण जो हीमोग्लोबिन होता है, इसकी 1 से लेके 15-16 कॉपीज तक भी प्रेजेंट होती हैं. जनरली 16, कहीं पे 15 लिखा होता है. सो यू कैन कंसीडर देम एज 15 or 16, whatever you like. And the second one is generally present in 9 segments, so 1 to 9, right? So now you can name them N1, N2, N3, N4, and so on, right? So now you will take one segment from this, one segment from this, and you can make several combinations. For example, I'm making some few H1N1, जो सबसे पहले recognize हुआ था, H1N1. उसके बाद में H2N2. Mouse is not working somehow. So H2N, forget. Then there you can also write one more, H3N2. Right. So these are very important actually. Why these are very important? Because H1N1 is called as Spanish flu or swine flu. So if it is given as which of the following is responsible for swine flu, or this is also called Spanish flu, so you need to mark H1N1. Second is called, you can call it duck flu, or actually this is a pandemic in Asia, so this is Asian flu. This is due to H2N2 strain. Then there is H3N2, that is also called as Hong Kong flu or London flu. Right. So these are some few important few pandemics which are a result from this influenza. So each time when there is a hemagglutinin and neuraminidase segment, it will make a completely new strain of virus, and then it will cause some kind of disease, either swine flu, Spanish flu, Asian flu, Hong Kong flu, or London flu. Okay, there is one more. If you remember H5N1, so this is actually called as bird flu. So likewise, okay. Then there is measles virus. So for example, causing measles, AIDS, HIV virus, rabies, this rabies virus. Okay, so one more important question from the rabies is, rabies virus is actually blood shape. Okay, so and it will recognize CD155 over animal cells. So it will recognize CD155. It will have bullet shape. So the shape is very interesting, and sometimes it is directly asked It is having a bullet shape. And one more important question which has been asked from the rabies part is it is making some inclusion bodies. So we had discussed inclusion bodies already. So inclusion bodies are called Negri bodies in this case. So if you type Negri bodies, and you will find the what are Negri bodies. So generally these Negri bodies are important because they are recognized when there is an rabies infection or some rabid animal have infected. Sorry, wait a minute. So so Negri bodies, and actually the stain which is used for staining of these Negri bodies is called Sellers stain, which is a combination of, so this Sellers stain is used to stain the Negri bodies which are present in the individuals which are having rabies infection. This Sellers stain is made up of basic fuchsin dye plus methylene blue in methanol, MBM. Okay, so if someone asks you a question related to rabies, so Negri bodies are generally present in the patients or in the cells which are infected with the rabies virus. It can be stained with the Sellers stain. Sellers stain is a combination of basic fuchsin dye and methylene blue in methanol. It will bind to CD155, whereas human immunodeficiency virus will bind to CD4 along with CCR5. Okay, so you need to remember this also. Then we had discussed about influenza virus, and all these things are important, whichever we have discussed in this page. All right. And this is called SARS, Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, SARS. If you अगर आप आज के देखें तो कोरोना वायरस is also resulting in the severe acute respiratory syndrome, therefore it is called as SARS COVID-2. Okay, so this syndrome is a respiratory disease in humans which is caused by this coronavirus, SARS coronavirus. Okay, it was identified in 2003, but now it is prominent in since 2019, since last year. Avian influenza, known as avian flu or bird flu, it is due to H5N1. I told you already this is a flu infection in birds. All known viruses that cause infection in birds belong to the species influenza A virus. There are many subtypes of avian influenza A virus, H5N1, S3, S7N3, S7N7, and S9N2. But the major one is H5N1. Okay. Swine influenza, for example, is also called pig influenza, swine or hog flu, pig flu. It is due to H1N1. I already have discussed this one. Swine influenza virus, SIV, is any strain of influenza virus which virus is endemic in pigs. Now there is three terms: endemic, pandemic, and epidemic. Okay, so you need to know that, you need to understand the difference between these three terms. Endemic is if a disease is present only certain population of organisms. For example, swine influenza is virus is present in only in the swine population or in the pigs. Bird influenza is abundant in birds only. But if there is a mutation in that particular virus, then it is able to infect some other hosts also, for example, humans, right? So this SIV strain, including influenza C virus and subtype of influenza A, is known as H1N1, H1N2, or H2N1. So this H1N1 is a major virus which is responsible for swine influenza. It is known as swine flu or Spanish flu. Yes, the virus which have infected earlier was COVID virus 1. but because this is new virus, it is having some mutations and the genome is different. So this is SARS COVID-2, right? So yes, there is COVID-1 also. Fine. So what I was telling is actually there are three possibilities. So these are called endemic, pandemic, and epidemic. So endemic is if it is the disease is present only one organism or the population of organism. For example, bird flu is present only in birds, then it is known as bird flu. But if this bird flu is, if there is a mutation in the virus and the infection is started in humans and on other animals, then this is known as pandemic. But pandemic is still present only in some part of the world. Okay. For example, HIV infection is a pandemic in some parts of in this Africa. Okay. But if the viral infection or some infection which is found worldwide, for example, this COVID-2 or this coronavirus right now, so this is an epidemic. It will called epidemic because the infection is present in all the countries or in the globe. Okay, so there is a difference between endemic, pandemic, and epidemic. You need to understand the differences. And for more details, you can find these words over internet, or if you have some problem, you can ask me. Okay. Now we are left with one more important topic, actually, which is given in Pathfinder only. I placed or took this topic for last because this is very, very important. And generally, one question is asked in any competitive examination, either in GATE or in CSIR. Okay. एंडेमिक आई टोल्ड यू शिवानी एक्चुअली अगर एक इन्फेक्शियस एजेंट जो भी पैथोजन है वो किसी एक ऑर्गेनिज्म की पॉपुलेशन को ही इन्फेक्ट करता है, जैसे बर्ड फ्लू हो गया या स्वाइन फ्लू हो गया, तो अगर वो किसी ऑर्गेनिज्म तक ही लिमिटेड है, अगर वो केवल बर्ड्स को ही इन्फेक्ट कर रहा है, देन इट इज एंडेमिक. एंडेमिक इज सम जैसे वी आर हैविंग दिस cold flu, so we can have this influenza. But if we are having some other virus which is also infecting some other animals or the population worldwide, then this can be a pandemic if it is present in some continent or in some countries. But if it is present globally, then this is known as epidemic. So endemic is the presence of disease in some specific host. Fine. So one important question should be asked from this particular portion called bacterial toxins and the agents which are used to. So there is two type of toxins. One is endotoxin, one is exotoxin, right? A table is given here which will tell the differences. One is exotoxin. Exotoxin is some species of gram-positive bacteria and gram-negative bacteria. Both can produce exotoxins, but endotoxins are produced only by gram-negative bacteria because gram-negative bacteria is having an outer membrane which is made up of lipopolysaccharides, and this lipopolysaccharide is having antigen A, which is endotoxin in nature, which is toxic in nature. Because these are exotoxins, they can be secreted out of the cell, but these are not secreted. They are present with the cell only. They are having proteins. The nature is protein, but here this is lipopolysaccharide or lipids plus carbohydrates. Because these are proteins, the genes should be present over plasmid or prophase of the chromosome or the chromosome. Okay, so prophase is actually the integrated chromosome of the virus into the bacterial genome. But the endotoxins are present only over bacterial chromosome, which is the main chromosome. Now, which one is more toxic? Exotoxin. It is highly toxic, but the toxicity of LPS is relatively low when compared to the exotoxin. So you need to understand this. Toxicity is more in case of exotoxin, the toxins which are released by the species of gram-positive and negative bacteria. Therefore, the immunogenicity is also high because our immune system should protect us against these toxins very efficiently. Vaccines, toxoid used as a vaccine. So here, because these are proteins or polyproteins, that we can make the toxoids. There is no toxoids formed because these are not proteins, these are lipopolysaccharides. We are not able to make the vaccine or toxoid out of this. Vaccines are not available in case of endotoxins. Heat stability, these are heat labile because these are proteins, so if you increase the temperature, they will be denatured. If you increase the temperature around 60 to 80 degree, they will be inactivated. But these are heat stable, and therefore this is important because they can tolerate the heat treatment. Now, so the toxin is a term for poison, a specific substance of a metabolic product of an organism of the host. Organism that will damage the host cell or host के लिए जो harmful है. This is toxin. Toxin is released generally by bacteria or some other infectious particle or pathogen. Toxin can even induce the disease in the absence of organism. Suppose the organism is not present, then toxin itself can cause the disease. If the toxin is present, if you remove the toxin, exotoxin, if it is secreted by the organism, even then it will infect the organism or the host and can cause the disease. Disease that result from the entrance of the specific toxin into the body of a host is called intoxication. मान लो किसी organism को इसका exposure हो गया है, then it is called intoxication. Term toxemia. Toxemia is toxin is present in the blood. Emia means blood. So if the toxin is present in the blood of the host, then this is known as toxemia. Toxin produced by the organism can be divided into two categories, as we have discussed, exo and endotoxins. Now, because these toxins can be further divided into following, depending upon their basis of site effector. If they are affecting the nerve tissues or the central nervous system, these are called as neurotoxins. Enterotoxins, if they are affecting intestinal mucosal epithelium. Cytotoxin, general tissues or the cells were infected or lyased, then this is cytotoxin, cells kill toxins. Based on the mode of action of the target cell, exotoxins can further divide into the following three categories. Now, एक toxins होते हैं जो cell surface पे act करते हैं. So, they will stimulate the intracellular signaling pathway. One common example is superantigen. What is the role of superantigen? Superantigen, for example, Staphylococcus aureus and Streptococcus pyogenes cause toxic shock syndrome because they will act like superantigens. Now, what is antigen? What is superantigen? So, antigen is normal. It is a part of pathogen which will responsible for an antibody response, right? Antigen. But if it is super antigen, it will bridge MSC class 2 proteins, that is major histocompatibility complex present over some cells. On antigen presenting cells, for example, macrophages, dendritic cells, okay. So it will have MSC class 2 and T cell receptor, that is CD3 on surface of T cells. So they will join both T cell receptor with MSC class 2. And when there is a binding of MSC class 2 with T cell receptor, they consequently what will happen, up to 30% of the T cells will be activated. So a large population of the T cells will be activated as a result of interaction between MSC class 2 and T cell receptor. And because a large number of T cells are activated, they will secrete cytokines. Cytokines are the chemicals released by the cells, these T cells, activated T cells, which will activate further cells of the immune system, of the immune response, which produce the symptoms of a toxic shock syndrome. So this is called toxic shock syndrome. It can be caused by the Staphylococcus aureus or Streptococcus pyogenes, right? Second type of toxins will damage the membrane. So what will happen? They will make the channels out of this membrane, and therefore they're called channel forming toxins. Or there are toxins in the second category which will enzymatically damage the membrane. They are having some enzymatic functions, and therefore they will able to damage the plasma membrane. For example, Clostridium perfringens. Okay. And Staphylococcus aureus is actually channel forming toxin. It will secrete some channel forming toxins. They will create the channels or pores in the plasma membrane. Alpha toxin is in this case in Clostridium perfringens is a phospholipase. What is phospholipase? Phospholipase is an enzyme which will uh, degrade the plasma membrane, right? So this phospholipase activity, which enzymatically damages plasma membrane by removing the charged polar head groups or the phosphate groups from the phospholipids. And this will result into gas gangrene. The Clostridium perfringens is responsible for some enzymes, for example, lecithinase. You know lecithin is PC, phosphatidylcholine. So if the phosphatidyl portion is removed, then this is known as lecithinase enzyme. So few will act as like enzymatically damage the membrane, for example, lecithinase or phospholipase, and they will be harmful for the cell. They will damage the plasma membrane. Third is called AB toxins. Okay, in this case, what will happen? The intracellular toxins, they will present inside the cell, B subunit and A subunit. They are having two subunits. Now you need to understand, because this is a direct question has been asked from this portion. B subunit is actually helping in attachment of the target region of the cell membrane, and A subunit is having some enzymatic activity. So enters through the membrane, possesses some enzymatic activity. A subunit is an enzyme. B is helping in attachment. So you need to understand AB toxins are dimers. They are having two subunits, A subunit and B subunit. A subunit is actually having the enzymatic functions, or it is enzyme in fact. A subunit is an enzyme, enters through the membrane in the membrane and then possesses an enzymatic activity, affect the internal cellular biomechanisms. Isolated A subunit are enzymatically active, but it will not able to bind to and it will not able to enter the cell. But the B subunit is actually able to bind with the cell, but it will not have an enzymatic activity. So it proved that AB is actually a complete toxin, and it is made up of two subunits, out of which A is an enzyme, B is helping in attachment and entry of this A subunit inside the cell. Toxins of this type, AB type, is cholera toxin, pertussis toxin, Shigella toxin, Shiga, tetanus toxin, botulinum, anthrax, heat labile, enterotoxin, or E. coli. So if you name a few toxins, for example, cholera, pertussis, tetanus, Shiga, anthrax, all are AB toxins. So you need to remember these because they can be asked as indirect questions. In all these toxins, they are having two subunits, out of which A is actually having the enzymatic function, and B is helping in the attachment of. Now, some roles of these or the mode of actions are given. For example, Corynebacterium diphtheriae, which is the causative agent of the disease diphtheria. Tetany is a tetanus. Clostridium botulinum, Clostridium perfringens is responsible for gas gangrene. Anthracis cause anthrax. Staphylococcus aureus, and this second one we have discussed that this will cause toxic shock syndrome. Vibrio cholerae is called causing this cholera, and Bordetella pertussis is known cause the whooping cough or the pertussis, right? Now, this pertussis or whooping cough stimulate adenylate cyclase by ADP ribosylation of G inhibitory alpha subunit. Both are having this alpha subunit, but you need to remember the difference between the cholera toxin and Bordetella pertussis toxin. They are ADP ribosylating, they are adding ADP. Okay, so they're adding, okay, so they're adding ADP to this adenylate cyclase enzyme. We discussed adenylate cyclase. What is the role of this enzyme? So it will convert ATP into, if you're having ATP, adenylate cyclase will convert this ATP into a cyclic AMP molecule, which is a secondary messenger. Okay, so if the ATP is present, adenylate cyclase will convert it into an cyclic AMP. Cyclic is small c, AMP, which is a secondary messenger, right? So this cyclic AMP will will be used for cell signaling, but if it is ADP ribosylated, this will not able to convert this ATP into cyclic AMP, and therefore secondary messenger concentration will be decreased. but the ribosylation is at different subunits. So here it is S, so this is stimulatory subunit, G stimulatory alpha. In case of Bordetella pertussis and whooping cough, this is inhibitory I. So G protein is present in GPCR signaling. So we have discussed G protein. This G protein is actually interacting with some GTP molecule. This is GTP. If you so there are two types. One is stimulatory, one is inhibitory. In case of Vibrio cholera or cholera disease, it is stimulatory. In case of whooping cough, it is inhibitory subunit of G subunit alpha. Actually, there are three subunits of alpha. We have discussed alpha, beta, and gamma. So if it is ribosylating, ADP ribosylating the alpha subunit. So I told you alpha is separate, beta and gamma are together. So we discussed all these things earlier also. We can skip this one. Okay. Corynebacterium diphtheriae is causing diphtheria. It will inactivate elongation factor 2 during ADP by ADP ribosylation in translation. So during translation, this EF2 will be ADP ribosylated. Therefore, the translation will be inhibited. Clostridium tetani, tetanus disease causing. So in case of tetanus, it will block the release of the inhibitory neurotransmitter glycine. Glycine is represented with the letter G or GLY. So this glycine is a inhibitory neurotransmitter. If it is not released, so the nerve conduction will not stop and it will continue, and therefore it will result into a condition called as tetanus. So contractions will be continuous because there is a continuous nerve action. There is no release of inhibitory neurotransmitter, for example, glycine, and it will result into the tetany. Botulism, which is result from Clostridium botulinum, it will block the release of acetylcholine. You know, this is a normal neurotransmitter or stimulatory neurotransmitter. What will happen in case of botulism? This will block the release of this normal neurotransmitter, and therefore there is no nerve conduction at all. Gas gangrene and Clostridium perfringens, which is causative agent of gas gangrene in tissues. So this alpha toxin is a lecithinase. As I told you, it will degrade the plasma membrane by removing the polar head groups from the PC or the lecithin, phosphatidylcholine. Okay. Bacillus anthracis, which is the causative agent of anthrax. In anthrax, one of the toxin is an adenylate cyclase itself. So what will it do? It will convert more ATP into cyclic AMP, and what will happen? More number of secondary messengers will be produced, and they will create disaster inside the cell. So the toxin is itself an adenylate cyclase, so it will cause anthrax. Toxic shock syndrome, I told you that the class 2 MSC protein will bind to the T cell receptor and it will induce the interleukin 1 and interleukin 2, that is cytokines secretion or release, and they will activate large population of T cells, and therefore this toxic shock symptoms of this illness will result. And rest is this cholera is stimulatory alpha subunit of G protein, and this is inhibitory G protein. ADP ribosylating the adenylate cyclase so that cyclic AMP is not produced out of ATP. You can control the microorganism by one of the following process: disinfection, antisepsis, sterilization. Now, what are the differences between these processes? So there are two type of agents. One is cidal, one is static. Cidal will kill the microorganism, static will inhibit the growth, or means they will not able to replicate further. Now you can use disinfectants. Disinfectant will be used, so the chemical that kill the microorganism and used on inanimate objects. Suppose you are wiping a table or your workbench. So you will use some chemical agents with that will remove all the inanimate object. So it will used on inanimate object, but you cannot use these disinfectants over living tissues or some animal tissues. Okay. Examples include hypochlorites, because these are very harmful to the living tissues. Chlorine compounds, copper sulfate, formaldehyde, you cannot use on living tissues, but you can use these on inanimate objects, on some table or some floor, for example. So these are called disinfectants. What will they do? They will react with the proteins, for example, amino group, thiol group, or carboxylic acid groups.
Phenolic compounds, they will denature the protein, they will disrupt the cell membrane of the microorganisms, and therefore they will kill the microorganisms. A mercury chloride, they will inactivate the protein by reacting with the sulfide groups if they are having some. Now there is some second category is called antiseptics. Antiseptics can be used over living tissues. They are non-toxic enough so that they can be applied from outside, but you cannot take them orally. Okay, antiseptics are chemical agent that kill or inhibit the growth of microorganisms. Suppose you are having an injury, so you will use antiseptics. You will kill or try to inhibit the growth of microorganism if you are having an injury. And these are non-toxic enough to be used on living tissues, so you can apply them on living tissues externally. They are non-toxic. Examples, for example, you can use alcohol, ethanol, 70% ethanol, because they will denature the protein and solubilize the lipids, and therefore they will inactivate or kill the microorganisms which will grow over your injury. Silver nitrate, you can use AgNO3 that will precipitate the proteins. Iodine solution you can also use and activate the proteins. Detergents, some of the detergents also can be used to disturb the plasma membranes of the microorganisms. So generally, if you are having an injury, you generally wash with a detergent or Dettol or something. Okay, so that you can remove all the disease-causing microorganisms or infectious microorganisms from that wound. दूसरा है भैया sterilization. Sterilization refers to the complete and total destruction of in eliminating all the viable or microorganisms. So actually sterilization is considered as the best way, because इसमें क्या होता है कि spores जो होते हैं वो भी eliminate हो जाते हैं, वो भी remove हो जाते हैं. So it will remove all the viable organism including microbial endospores. So जो microbial endospores हैं जो कि generally destroy नहीं होती, sterilization में destroy हो जाती हैं. Is one of the substances being sterilized. Sterilization process involves the use of heat, radiation, chemicals, physical removal of the cells. So one simplest method is physical removal of the cells. This is called filtration. So filtration is a kind of sterilization, because you are using some filter, 0.2 micron, for example, which will remove all the bacteria. Okay, so this is physical removal of cell is a kind of sterilization. So common process used for sterilization of flaming, you can direct heating so that you can oxidize the living matter. Autoclave, steam under pressure. The steam is having high temperature, 121 degrees Celsius for some 15 or 20 minutes, so that it will be sterilized. Trindalization, there is one more term, trindalization. This is also a form of sterilization, because steam not under pressure. But what will you do? Trindalization is a process which will actually, by this process of trindalization, जो कल्चर मीडिया होते हैं उन्हें स्टरलाइज करा जाता है. उसे लगभग 3 days तक कंसिक्यूटिव डेज तक सक्सेसिव डेज तक ट्रीट करते हैं हाई टेम्परेचर पे, कि उसमें जो स्पोर्स हैं वो ग्रो हो जाएं और फिर उनको भी किल करा जा सके. Sterilization is a process used to sterilize the culture media and might be spoiled by the exposure of higher temperature. Suppose there is a high temperature, so the culture media can be destroyed. So therefore, we will use another process, that is sterilization. इसमें क्या करते हैं, the heat sensitive media is steamed for 30 to 45 minutes. ज़्यादा टाइम के लिए उसको steam के अंदर रखते हैं 3 successive days तक, 3 दिन तक लगातार. On the first occasion, what will happen? Vegetative cells will be killed. वेजिटेटिव बैक्टीरिया की डेथ हो जाएगी. एनी स्पोर्स अगर वो रह जाएंगी तो 3 दिन में वो जर्मिनेट कर जाएंगी. जर्मिनेशन के लिए जनरली 10 से 12 घंटे चाहिए होते हैं. So overnight they will germinate, and in the next cycle they will be killed, or in the second one, if they are still left in the third steaming, they will be killed. So consecutive for 3 days, the steaming is done for 30 to 45 minutes so that all the cells can be removed and our media can be sterilized. Now there is one more term. This is called pasteurization, right? तो pasteurization दो तरीके से कर सकते हैं. या तो 63 डिग्री सेल्सियस पे करें 30 मिनट्स के लिए for half an hour. This is called batch method. Can be asked in any exam. और for 71 डिग्री सेल्सियस पे करें 15 सेकेंड्स के लिए, राइट?
This is flash method. Flash method means it will be fast to kill the bacteria and extend the life of some of the liquids, for example, milk, or actually the method was used initially by the Pasteur to preserve the wine. Okay. Now there are some other methods called physical agents. There are some chemical agents. So you can read them out. These are filtration, X-rays, gamma rays, which will be used as ionizing radiations. And if you are using the filter, it is generally 0.22 micron, which will remove all the smallest non-bacterial cells, and therefore it will sterilize your culture. There are some chemical agents, for example, alcohol, heavy metals, mercury, silver nitrate, they can be used. Okay, so two important halogens, for example, chlorine and iodine, can be used as an oxidizing agent. So their methods of action or their mechanism can be asked, how they're. Now say there's some antibiotics. Now this column is also very important, and this is the last topic in this microbiology. So if you are having any question from the previous discussion, you can ask. I'm giving you a break so that we can finish this antibiotic portion also in today's class only.